man, Chris. All right, guys. Thank you very much for joining us for another Dead Hedgehogs podcast. I don't even know what number it is anymore. And of course, it's me, Stephen Kelly, Cowboy Kelly. We have Chris Sledgehammer Gavigan, and we have, of course, Peter Cassidy. And tonight we are joined by Angelina Nugent, a good friend of ours, a Mayo media mogul, a charity organizer, fundraiser. And Angelina, thanks for joining us.
Oh, Stephen, I think I'll have to leave now. After that introduction. But what is a Mayo media mogul?
I don't know. You're Mayo's version of Rupert Murdoch, I think.
Yeah.
Rupert Murdoch. Yeah. These are the sort of things that came to mind. I don't know if that's But anyway, thanks for that, and good to see you. Goodbye. No, it's great to be here. It's great to be here, guys.
Paul Claffey will be sickened now that he's not the Mayo media mogul.
I think he's the prince of it, but he's a Roscommon native, so Castlereagh native. So that's what we'll say. Oh, he is, yeah. Yeah, he is. So he's very proud of his Castlereagh roots. So that's okay. He's a Roscommon media mogul. That's fine.
Fair enough. There's room in Connacht for the two of you.
Yeah.
Does Paul still be on the radio?
Yes. Paul is on with Jerry every morning, weekday morning from 11 to 1. And actually, lads, do you know something? And it's not, it's coddling joking aside, but it'd do you good to listen to it, because I know during COVID, since we all started working at home or whatever we've been doing since last March, a colleague of mine said that she used to always turn the radio on at 11 o'clock to have it on in the background, because it was a COVID-free zone. And they talk, and I'm sure, look, Jerry or Paul won't fall out with me when I say they talk about the daftest and most random things, a bit like this, to be honest.
Yeah. This can go any direction.
And they just do it for 2 hours. And you know what? It was a tonic. And it's quite strange, I wouldn't have heard much radio while I was working in radio, because you'd be kind of in your own little bubble, at your desk and working on whatever your next deadline was, or next show or next program was. But I got to hear an awful lot more radio over the last year, and that's one of the things I've enjoyed doing, is listening to the boys between 11 and 1. I try and tune in as much as I can, because it's a bit of a tonic.
You were in Midwest for a long time.
That really got to Pete's heart.
Sorry. You were there for a good few years, weren't you?
That was too much. You had to leave.
Yeah, he had to leave. No, he's got to turn on the radio.
Yeah.
I just didn't forget it in the morning between 11 and 1. What I'm trying to say is, Chris, I'm not that old. I wasn't there that many years.
I never.
Obviously. I started when I was 5, and I was there for 18 years. No, I was 18 years full time in Midwest up to 2019. So I went in after my leaving cert in 2001. I had been working with them part time before that. So from about age 15, I was doing reports for the legend, Willie the Shoe McNeely, sports reports. And then when I was doing my leaving cert, it's funny, I was actually telling this story on a job interview quite recently, but I was saying, I don't know whether I like to do this full time or not, but I need to find out. So postponed all talk of CEO places and all of that kind of thing, and went to Willie and said, look, I want to see, do I like this, but will I like it from working every day at it, or an internal point of view? Because it's great crack going out to matches and that and covering them, but there's a whole other side to it. So he said, look, I'll give you a bit of work until you make your mind up. So I went into Midwest 2 days a week, which would have been the sports editor's days off, Monday and Tuesday. And I covered the sports bulletins and everything for him, and helped him organise lines and matches and all that. And then he had a dedicated sports website at the time. He was ahead of his time when you think about it. It was for the 5 Connacht counties. And I worked on that out of 21st Century in Castlebar. It's actually there in Moneen in Castlebar, or it was there. And updated a sports website on a Friday, Saturday and Sunday. So you'd upload previews and stuff on a Friday, and then it was all about the matches themselves. So I worked in-house on that. And he was very true to his word. I mean, I've spoken about this on a huge number of occasions. Willie looked after me so well. He said, I'll get you something. And he did. And I'm sure Chris and Paul, I'm talking about Paul Claffey and Chris Carroll, who was station manager at the time and is one of the founding members of Midwest as well, thought, what is he doing bringing this 18-year-old girl in here about, to talk about sport? And I wouldn't blame them for it. I probably doubted myself an awful lot at the time. But he told me that he'd guide me in the right direction, and that he did, But unfortunately, the following year, so I went in the September, doing the 2 days a week and the work on his website. He got sick again, and he passed away in the June. And I have to say, and I know that this is a lighter type of podcast, that was probably one of the first big bereavements that I had remembered that I'd experienced in my life. Like, it was such a big part of my life, and he was such a big influence on me. And I had so much time for Willie. He was just one of those characters, like, I tell you, he'd love a podcast like this now. He'd absolutely love something like this, because he was crack. He was larger than life. He had all the sayings and all the lingo.
I remember
how I came to be there full time.
To Willie the Shoe. Did he used to go to even the club matches and commentate from club matches?
If there were two flies going up a wall, Stephen.
Did he come get sick at one of the matches, county final ones? In the booth?
I think it was a match in.
Knockmore.
No, I think actually no. I think who you're thinking of there could have been a guy who did commentaries for us at the time.
Yes.
Willie Ryan from Ballyhonus. And
okay.
I think Willie did, that was prior to me starting, but I think that was in Crossmolina.
Crossmolina, you're right.
Yeah, and I think it was Willie Ryan. He took ill at a game down there. But I mean, Willie went out. The two flies going up a wall. Willie the Shoe. He was there. He was commentating, and you would think that there was a crowd of 80,000, and that it was the closest thing you'd ever seen. He was exceptional. He was one of a kind, and he brought local sport and local radio to a whole other level. And when he passed away, I mean, Paul Claffey came to me and he offered me the job, and they had advertised, and I thought, he's offered me the job out of pure. He's not really going to give it to me, because I couldn't imagine how this gap was going to be filled, because he was a larger than life person. But anyway, on the third time of having a conversation with Paul, where he said, would you think about it seriously? Because I was all set for going to Dublin, and that was it. I was out of there after the year was up. I thought, God, maybe he is serious about this. So that was it. And the rest, they say, is history. And I took up the role. But the one thing I did realise, and I will say that until the day I die, is that no one was going to replace Willie. You just had to go and do your own thing, because I'd never, ever, ever have been able to do what he did. Never.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why was he called Willie the Shoe?
Oh, but do you know what? I think, Peter, I used to think he worked as a manager, I think. Now, I'm open to correction on that, and I don't want to insult anyone. He did an awful lot of jobs in his lifetime, but I think he was in a shoe shop in Castlebar at one stage. But that isn't why, I tell you that isn't why he got the name. Because what I think, as far as I know, the story goes, that he was in McBurn's. He liked an out flutter on the GGs. And was there a jockey? I'm not great with horse racing, so Schumacher, I know there was obviously a Formula One driver, two of them, two brothers. But there was something about a horse or a jockey with the surname Schumacher, and he came in and gave this tip and had put money on it, won a fortune. He was in the pub over and back, on one of the big racing days. But I don't know whether it was Cheltenham or what it was. It's going back years and years ago. And
it could have been a jockey, actually.
I think it was a jockey. I think it was, yeah. Stephen. And it won big, and he was christened like Shoemaker, Willie the Shoe. And
Very
that was
good.
it then from there on in, and he embraced it completely, because that was his nickname then on air.
He sounds like someone that you would love now to go and have a pint and watch a couple of races with.
Oh, Stephen, 100%. And that was the thing, I remember nights out with him as well. He was a great man to have a bit of crack with. He was one of a kind, and he was. Oh, look, you'd have the best to crack with him. But he knew his horses now too, and I know you've done plenty of stuff coming up to Cheltenham and that, so. Any tips would be appreciated. I know this won't be going out maybe the week of Cheltenham, but you can send them on.
Lads just told me off air that they won 200 and 300 euro today. So they did. So
Pete, were you informed of any of this? They told me
They told me after they won. They didn't tell me before.
Yeah, that's, I tell you, with friends,
we were in constant contact ourselves, though. So that's all right.
with friends like them, who needs enemies, Pete?
Exactly.
Listen, we'll unearth some tips for the week.
If I brought Pete to the bookie shop and got him to write it out myself, he still wouldn't back a horse.
No.
Okay, fair enough.
He'd be worried that he'd be the reason that the horse fell. You know.
I don't know. I don't know.
He'd be worried that he'd win.
I don't know anything. I don't know anything about horse racing at all. I used to bet like 50p each way. We had a neighbour called the Mad Regan. He used to come over and give us he had another name as well, but I won't say it. But but the Mad Regan used to come over and he used to give us the thing, and he goes, betting that horse, and we'd get 50p each way. That's as much as my knowledge in horse racing. But we had David Mullins on the last day, a famous jockey, and he gave the boys a few tips. So, but I don't know.
Did you?
I need to study that.
Yes, you'll have to watch the podcast to get the tips.
But I'm with Pete. I'd be the €2 each way when someone gives me a tip, and then can't understand why someone else has won 500. I'm winning like a tenner, on the same horse. So yeah, I'm with you on that.
But I've had, speaking of betting, going off topic, well on topic, but off the podcast topic. I've had some great days of betting, like days where I won from €3.50 once, €3.50 or £3.50. I won €5,135, something like that.
No way! What? You didn't put it back in. You didn't put it back in.
Oh, I did not. No, I took it out. Yeah. That was the day I had the 6 horses, and I kept telling my father, and that the next one won. And he said, that's great. He said, you've 2,000 now. I said, yeah. I said, but the only thing is, I said, it's going on to another horse. Yeah. So there was there was 2,500 going on to the last horse, and I didn't even watch it myself, but I could hear him roar.
And could you put the 200? Could you take it off? Could you keep the 2,000?
No, not at the time. At the time, they wouldn't have done cash outs.
You can cash out now, and
yeah, you can cash out, but I wouldn't have cashed out anyway.
No.
Okay.
Because you're only losing.
You could
You're only losing 350, like.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, but you could cash out now. But if you cash out, am I right in saying that? Okay, right, Stephen won 2,500, but you're not going to cash out for that if you pull out before that last bet. Like they're going to make you an offer. Is that right?
Yeah. We'll say you 2,500 going on to your last horse. You might get offered 1,500.
Yeah.
To cash out.
Yeah.
But if you cash out and your horse wins, well, then you've lost. Then you've practically lost 3,500.
I was talking to a guy earlier on, and like this will make you sick. I was talking to him, and he was complaining about he couldn't reopen his Paddy Power account, and that he had a tip. There was a guy from Mayo that owned a horse that won at Cheltenham today.
I saw that.
Your man's a good friend of his. And he said, look, we'll meet up for a drink later on. Maybe I've got a good feeling about today. So he said, so that was his code of saying, put a couple of quid on the horse. And he was on the phone to me anyway. And he said, I couldn't reopen the Paddy Power account. And I'm going to put €200 on this horse. It was 66-1 this morning. And I said, well, bad news is the horse won. It would have been 30. We've been 16,000 one back on 200 quid. 16 grand.
But no, this fellow wouldn't be short of a few pounds.
Not short. He's not short. He's but 16 grand is no matter who.
Yeah, no matter who you are, it's nice money. Well, my biggest win, so Stephen, thanks for that story of the 3,500 or whatever it is. I was actually at Cheltenham.
Oh, lovely.
1 year. There was a horse, and now I won't be able to think. Was it Corski Royale or Corski from French Park? Yeah. Yes. So they did a charter flight out, and it was a group, a syndicate in French Park and the surrounding areas that owned it. So they were close enough to where I'm living. And the charter flight out of Knock, and it was the day that Cheltenham was postponed because of the big storms. So the charter flight was cancelled that day, and then we went the following day. So I was in Cheltenham with Paul actually, and another girl, Kirsty, who worked with us at the time. And it was funny because like that was my biggest. Paul was extremely lucky that day, but no more than a story. Putting on the £2 and the £10 and the £5, and I followed him in a couple of bets after he'd won on the first few. So I think I had £150 coming home. Well, I was absolutely made up with myself. Made up. So it wasn't 16,000.
Korsky Royal though was only placed, if memory serves me right.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, it didn't win. But we were doing it as part of a documentary, and then we ended up blagging our way into some champagne tent.
Oh, lovely.
It was crazy stuff. I don't know, was it lovely though, Chris? Like, really,
Yeah.
a champagne tent isn't me.
Well, if you drink enough of it, it will definitely will be you.
I can adapt.
Yeah, I suppose.
I can adapt to my surroundings.
I don't know if I was kind of, but it was that kind of country set. Like, you kind of see these people, or you hear about, like, okay, we go to the race in Ballinrobe and we have a bit of crack, and you kind of turn up and you might dress up a bit like or whatever, but it's kind of our version of it. But it was that real kind of country set, that kind of the tweeds, and there were young people, but it was it was kind of crazy. Now it was it was fun, but fun.
Cheltenham is a bit like Royal Ascot. It's the national hunt meeting of Royal Ascot, and it's a bit like maybe even Galway, but Galway I think is a bit more normal.
Yeah.
Were you ever in Galway?
No, never in Galway, and threatening, of course, to go the last few years, but that's not going to happen this year either, is it? So
no, and that's another thing. Do you miss the crowds? Do you miss being involved with people, interacting?
Massively, Stephen. I know this is probably one of the biggest things for me. So be it with sport, or be it with my job in the Mayo Roscommon Hospice Foundation, which I finished up in the end of last month. A lot of it, and like you guys were so involved, like, and did that great fundraiser for us towards the end of September. And it was great because restrictions had eased a bit. So like we could actually meet, or we were there at the start line when you were starting and at the finish line when you were coming home, and there was a bit more interaction. That primarily for the full year since last March has been non-existent. Like, you're not getting to see people, you're talking to them on the phone, or you're doing your Zoom calls or whatever it might be. And that's all great. But like, can you imagine the crack? This is what I just say to people. Can you imagine the crack we'd have sitting down now, having a cup of coffee or a champagne, which I obviously would expect from my experience with and living in that world. But like the crack you have when it's face to face, it's different, and it's not over technology, or it's not over. And I miss that. Now, I was very lucky. I was doing some freelance work for Radio 1 and Mayo GATV, the past couple of years at Mayo GATV, but Radio 1 last February, and then everything came to a halt in March. So we had crowds at the matches up until then, and then everything restarted, as you know, like in kind of the end of October. So from the end of October really until the beginning of December, I got a few freelance gigs with Radio 1 again. But it was so strange because all of those matches were without crowds, like all of them. And I missed it. I have to say I missed it. Now, I wasn't obviously at All Ireland's or anything like that. They were doing full coverage of those. They didn't need a reporter or whatever at them. But I can only imagine what that was like for the players. Like, I was actually at the Mayo Leitrim game, and Barry O'Neill is the producer in Radio 1, Sunday Sport, and Barry is from Donegal, so he gets the passionate Mayo thing. Like, he gets the whole passion about football. And I remember him saying to me the first weekend he rang me, or the first week, he said, "Look, would you go to Carrick for me to the Mayo Leitrim game?" I was like, "Barry, would I go? I'd go for free." Like, there's no problem here. I get to see a Mayo game, and no one else is going to go. No one else is able to go. So I was delighted, and I really was. But that day was eerie. That was my first home, because I had gone to a couple of the club games during the summer, because I'm involved with Ballahadreen here, as an official, like not the committee, not obviously playing or anything like that, but and I had gone to some of those where they had the 200 spectators, and they were strange enough. But when you go into a stadium, even like Carrick, which isn't massive, it's a provincial ground, And you can hear everything. And if you know Carrick and Shannon, like Park Sean McDermott is tight. So like the stand, the press box is at the back of the stand, and the sideline is not too far away because it's not a huge stand. You could hear absolutely everything. I know you could hear this on TV as well, with the managers were saying, the selectors were saying, the players were shouting from the stands, like, because they weren't in dugouts.
Yeah.
So it was the strangest thing, and it was eerie. And look, for the players, it has to be tough. I don't care what anyone says, it has to be hard. There's a lot of talk coming up to the All-Ireland, would it take pressure off Mayo and not having the lunatic supporters like us there, but I don't know, it has to be very strange.
Of course it is. Sure, that's half it is the actual atmosphere that the crowd creates.
They can get a team over the line as well.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
Or the opposite way. I do think that there is, in that last 5 minutes or 10 minutes, that nervousness from the crowd in Mayo and Croke Park when we're within a point of Dublin. I think that nervousness can translate to the players.
Do you though, Chris?
Yeah, I think.
Really believe that. Yeah, you see, I would be of the opposite. I know there's a lot of talk about this, but it's great. It's like this is what debate and chat. This is what I miss about not seeing people talking football. And you see, I would think that they're like, to be honest, Mayo don't want to hear this because they're an unbelievable team, but they haven't won their ultimate goal. Like, they haven't won an All-Ireland, so they don't want to hear me saying how great I think they are. I think they're fed up with that talk, being honest. But like, they won't go down in history because unfortunately people don't remember the second best team, and let's be real about it. But Dublin are a team of a generation. I mean, more than a generation, of the last century. I mean, like, you can't even compare it, in my opinion. Yes, fantastic football to watch, but that Kerry team of the 80s and the Kerry Dublin games, it was amazing football. It was catch and kick, but they weren't the athletes that they are now. They weren't moving the way they are. So like, you look at that Dublin team, it's just crazy. It's crazy, like, how good they are. And Mayo, unfortunately, came up against them in an era that they're that crazy good. Now, you flip that, and if Dublin weren't around the last 10 years in the way that they have been, Mayo probably could have won 2 or 3 All-Irelands, or we'd have won one and all gone on the drink for a year.
Yes.
One of the two.
No, we definitely would have won one. And I even think, even before this great Dublin team, if we had won one of the All-Irelands in 96 or 97, or 2004, I really think we would have went on.
Between.
I think
it started things. Or
that might have broke the bank.
You know?
It might have broke the bank. They might have broke the seal. It's kind of like when you really need to go to the toilet and you wee. So they might have broke the seal, and they might have been able to get that All-Ireland. They might have pushed it on to another All-Ireland. How do you think they'll do? Is it going to go ahead this year?
God, it's going to be hard for them. Like, I'd say they'll play something, Pete. I'd say they'll get something played. What it'll be, like, the prioritising club last year was amazing. I mean, I enjoyed that. I don't know, like, about you, but like, just to see clubs get priority and get
there was a lot of engagement, like, with the fans and stuff. They really got behind it. It was a big difference this year.
Even the intermediate final was on television. We watched it in the Copper Beach.
Great,
yeah, it was good atmosphere. But at least it was something, and it was like. But that's it. You need like a point or a fulcrum to work off, and even like, was it Ball versus Kelshima? I mean, to get so excited about them two teams playing.
Well, especially with Kilchmal losing, it was even better.
Yeah.
What's the problem with Kilshima?
No
problem. I just thought I'd throw that out into the mix.
Bad lads don't stop. So how do you think Mayo will do now with all the retirements? How do you think they'll get on? They've had six retirements, or?
Yeah, crazy, Pete. Like, look, to be honest, those are lads that probably would have been gone before this. What I mean is, if we hadn't that push on for a short season last year, like, there might have been some of those lads who would have hung up the boots. I think the championship suited Mayo last year. I think that knockout, I know we've kind of fallen back on the back door the last few years, but I think the knockout suited them. And I loved it, to be honest. Oh, my poor late father, if he was around for what I was saying, it was always this old rubbish of a back door.
Yeah.
They're either in the championship or they're not. And you know what? There was a lot. This year was so exciting, and like the great games we had, like the Cavan story, you know, the Tipperary story. Like they probably wouldn't have happened the same way if we had the same championship set up. But yeah, look, it'll be hard for Mayo. The one thing I would say about this year, and you know, again, it's not me trying to maybe. I would have been happy with the Connacht title this year. I think it was vitally important that they won, or sorry, last year now. I keep saying this year. Vitally important that they won a provincial title. They hadn't done it in so long, and it was, I think, pivotal to James Horan's season. Now, I know James Horan won't be telling me or anyone else what his plans were, but I do probably think it was a big focus for him to win that provincial title. And then I think that the development of new players, which maybe is something that hadn't happened in previous years to the same extent, I think that was hugely heartening. Like, you look at the 3 Young Player of the Year nominations, were all Mayo.
Yeah.
Like, you know, those lads were like Owen McLaughlin and Tommy Conroy. Those 2 lads will only, like, they're only going to improve. They're so young. Oisin Mullen to me was an absolute revelation. I mean, he's the real deal, that book. He's the real deal.
And the best
really
thing, the other thing is that there's going to be other lads coming behind them with the idea that they can get into the team now, whereas that was almost a half shut door for about 4 or 5 years, because the team.
So that's it, and I think that's coming back to Pete's point. Like, the retirements are like, they're massive players, and I wouldn't be too hard on Mayo this year in terms of expectation, because, and there'll always be expectation with us lunatics in Mayo, but I wouldn't be too hard on them, because like they're big players. Like, you can't lose those sort of characters. You know, the Keith Higginses, the David Clarks, you know, these are lads that are just massive parts of a team and not have an impact. But by the same token, Chris, I think that's a great point. That, you know, lads will see that they can break into this team now, and they'll get a right go at it. They'll get a right chance. And you look at like, there's all new management now at underage as well this year, because I'm doing a program for Mayo GA tomorrow, actually, and we have a few of the managers on, you know, on Facebook Live. I know this will be going out after, but I hate when people do that tomorrow and then it's over. It was St. Patrick's Day. But you know, Mara Sheridan there as under 20 manager, Sean Dean is in as under 17 manager, and like they're great appointments, because they are lads who I think have, you know, they've worked with underage. Like, Mara Sheridan was massively involved within UIG and Sigerson Cup teams and that, and he's seen young players and developed them really well. Sean Dean Academy the whole way up, and so, you know, the likes of that is very important. You can't just say, here's your senior team, go and win in All Ireland, if the basis isn't there behind it. And I think there's real big work going on behind the scenes to get that right, you know, and I think we'll see the fruits of that over the next few years. But, you know, a fella said to me the last day, a Roscommon man, strangely enough, if
don't listen to them.
I know, I have to listen to so many of them split in this town, but you know, he's a good football man, I have to say. And but his thing was, like, if Dublin keep going the way they're going, they won't be beaten for 10 years, and it's hard to see where they'll be beaten at some stage.
Of course,
but
every team.
Will there? Yeah. But will Mayo be a force when Dublin decide they've won enough? And I think it'll be a case of, I think Dessie Farrell has done real work, and no one can deny that. And I think, you know, this might be controversial, but I think Jim Gavin was amazing, and we all know he was incredible. I think Dessie Farrell has probably brought it on a bit, because I know there was a lot of talk. I heard someone talking about the work he does one-to-one with players on a personal level. It probably is a step again above what Jim Gavin was doing, because he's worked with a lot of those at under 21 level in Dublin and all that as well. So yeah,
I was talking to someone that was in the background of the Dublin team when Jim Gavin had it, and that even what Farrell is doing now, it all is based on what Jim Gavin brought to it in the beginning. He has a foundation put in it, and the lady said that, I'm sorry to say, but it was actually a Kerry woman, and she said Kerry, Mayo, Donegal, Tyrone won't be winning All Ireland for another 5 or 6 years. That the basis is there for that Dublin team to continue on for 5 or 6 years.
I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's very hard.
You look at the way that Dublin is structured, and they've had the women's game dominating it.
Yeah.
The senior game dominating it. Under 21. So there's a common theme that Dublin have put a development, like a tiered development, that they're just churning out player after player. And why we're all getting bent out of shape of players that have been here for 20 years and haven't won an All-Ireland title, they're just stripping lads out. You don't see a Bernard Brogan in there anymore. You know,
No, and there was no kind of there was no emotion around Bernard Brogan. I know he got back into the squad and all of that, but there was no kind of sentimentality because he'd come back from a career-ending injury and did so well to come back. And that's the way it has to be. Now, I do think we've changed our attitudes a little bit more, but I and that's not. I think it's just being realistic. I think the foundations are there now, as well as that. And I don't mean to sound like, because I do think you win it on a field, and it's how you approach it on the field on the day and the preparation coming up to it. But like, there has to be something looked at, and I think Congress this year was so frustrating from that point of view. Like the investment per player cannot be argued with.
It's so obvious, and I know Steve doesn't like this, but it is so
right,
badly
Stephen.
tilted.
Well, we can row about this all night because I have all night. It really annoys me.
But
before you get into the investment per player, like look at this for any other sport. Like if I was playing any other sport, but I could play all my finals in my own house. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sleep in my own bed. Do you know what I mean? Maybe if they brought in
Park is Dublin's. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like they're playing a home venue every game. So that has to be an advantage. I think that's a big advantage. I think.
Of course it is, but you look at, was it the 2015 or 2014 was the Kerry semi-final. 2015 was Dublin, and we drew with Dublin in the semi-final. And I think it was the 2015 one. Like, so there was 6 days between that and the replay. It had been, as all Mayo games are, a huge hitting game, great game, like great for the neutrals, nails chewed down to the quick if you were from Mayo or Dublin. And Mayo had to, like, I don't know whether they stayed that night because they had, the plans had been in place. They may have stayed and were down on the Monday or whatever the case may be. But the replay was the following Saturday. Like, Dublin within 2 hours that evening were back doing, and ye lads, ye can testify to how important that recovery work is. Because I know 100%. This is a big thing for ye, and for making a comparison to what you've done for Beaumont, and then for the hospice, and how you recover yourselves. And like they were doing their recovery within 2 hours. Mayo, it was probably 24 hours later.
And then just traveling back down to Mayo. Do you know what I mean? I know they're probably getting the train or whatever, and they're chilled out a bit.
It doesn't matter. It's not the same though, is it? Like it's not the same as going home to sleep in your own bed. It's not the same as getting your meals delivered to your door, and that's fine. Like, people are willing to invest in Dublin because of the success story there, and that's absolutely fine. I have no problem with the sponsorship deals they attract and all that. It is more difficult for rural teams, but I know there was a comparison made with Leitrim and what their sponsorship compared to AIG was. What their sponsorship deal was worth, and it was enough to cover what Leitrim needed. But like, how do you like? It has to be disheartening for players in other counties, and that's not being disrespectful, but like, why would you get, myself and my sister were talking about this one night over the course of the championship, why would you get up and play an Ulster Championship game now?
Yeah, it's a funny one, but like, what's the other option? People are talking about splitting them into 2 or 3 or 4.
I'm not a fan of that either.
I'm just letting you chat away until I get my chance.
Like, there's a soliloquy coming from Stephen now in about 5 minutes.
It'd be just awful to see Dublin North versus Dublin South, and then
they'd still win it, Pete.
It would
because it's not about splitting them up. It's about balancing the amount of finances that they can use at their disposal to develop the next bunch of players. You can't have one bunch of players getting one thing because they're from 6 miles down the road. You could literally be 1 mile down the road in Meath, and you don't have the same opportunity as the lads in Dublin because they've just got an absolute monopoly on how that they bring in sponsorship, how they bring in gate receipts, the whole works. And if you think that finances don't have an effect on the field and you want to be a traditionalist like Stephen, well, you're full of shit, because Man United won fucking how many years in a row? They won 10 titles in 13 years because they had more money than everyone else. And now Man City have more money than anyone else. In the last 10 years, they've won 5 titles. Finances make a difference.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree completely. But they have to actually take out the Croke Park factor as well. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Well, it's
everybody wants
the problem.
Makes a
Yeah,
difference.
the problem with the funding is the funding they're getting directly from the additional funding. So every county is entitled to funding, but there's additional funding because they're Dublin, and that's not balanced.
Yeah.
The sponsorship opportunities, that's up to a county to develop, a corporate plan, and that's the way it's gone to attract new spot. Like, look, Port Wester on the new Mayo jersey. Like, obviously a lot of work went into that. So they're on the back, Elvery's on the front, and that's another investment for Mayo, which has to be good. But if you're getting additional money from the headquarters of a sporting body because you're a certain body, there's something wrong there. Now, Stephen, off you go.
Right. Actually, the only point out of that I would agree with. Well, I agree with it a little bit, all of it, but is Pete's thing about how within an hour or two everyone's at home in bed in their own beds and they don't have to be worried about traveling. But then again, that's the way it's been since 1884. If Dublin got
yeah,
into
but there's more games now. There's more games now. Do you know what I mean?
There is, yeah, but
A lot
also
more games now.
at the end of the day, it's 15 against 15, and no matter how much, like, don't tell me that the Mayo players or the Tyrone players or the Kerry players. I'm using the top six. Cork. Well, I wouldn't even call Cork a top six team anymore. Maybe Galway. Don't tell me that they're not getting looked after, and there's only so much extra you can do with the player.
Yeah, but are there under 16s?
Well, that's what I mean. It's up to the counties and the county boards to put it in plan. I know people that have plans done out for underage. It's time that other counties put these things in. There's this thing about underage that let them enjoy the game, and that is great. Obviously, we want to let them enjoy the game.
No.
No,
They shouldn't be
don't
enjoying
enjoy.
it.
If anything, they should cry.
In fact, I've actually done. I'm doing a fundamentals course in GAA at the minute because I have plans. Martin, my uncle, got in to manage the ladies Sligo under 16, and he wants to bring me in underneath them. Now, for me, it's not not my dream; it's his dream. But I would like to be involved, as I love the GAA and I love even the LGFA. I love the actual Gaelic game itself. But the thing is to put the plans in place from right down to under 14s, and then bring them all the way up, and then bear your fruit. A bit like what the rugby had done a few years ago. A lot of rugby teams, Ballina is a perfect example. They have a brilliant, for girls and lads, a brilliant underage teams, and they're developing them all the time. And now they're in the, I don't know if they stayed up, but they got into the actual league proper last year or 2 years ago. I think it's time to invest in our youth and bring them along all the way to the seniors. And again, at the end of the day, I think it's 15 against 15, and I really do believe that it's a mental thing. We've had this discussion before. I do think that West of Ireland teams go up to Croke Park 2 points down before the whistle is even blown.
Well, why do you think that's the case, Stephen?
I don't. It's an attitude thing.
I'm just genuinely interested, because you look at the Galway teams that won All Ireland's, or Currafin.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. They have a different. They're like a Dublin. They're like a.
Yeah. But Galway as well. For some reason, they always seem to perform when they go. Now we have as well. We just can't see it past the line. But when they won it in '98 and 2001. Yeah. Yeah. And they were being managed by a man from Balladreen, actually.
John O'Mahony.
Yeah, and yeah. he had managed Mayo before as well, but they just had a winning attitude, and there was no way.
But you can't say that consistency of winning is not linked to just having 15 good footballers. Because if that was the case, then Mayo would have won a title, because they have 15 excellent footballers.
Sorry, and the squad, and the squad.
What I'm saying is that the constant development of new players in the last couple of years has to be linked to more finances going to a one-sided team. It's indisputable that Dublin have more money. Everybody knows that.
Yeah,
But they've
I'm
also
not arguing with that at all.
they've also channeled that into consistent wins in every grade. The only thing that they're not winning at is hurling, and they are much closer than they were 15 or 20
They
years.
are
They're getting closer though. They're getting closer.
absolutely, yeah.
much
They've put
closer.
it, they've poured it on. Yeah.
So
yeah,
you
they
might,
are, yeah, 100%.
I think you're looking at rose tinted glasses and going, it's an attitude thing. But it's like, no, they're developing and holding on to talent better than everyone else because they have the financial means to keep them invested.
What's the solution? What is the solution to?
You
Cut
can't
the
take
$1 million
it,
question.
you
Yeah.
can't take it away from Dublin, but you have to raise it everywhere else. More money has to go. You have to put a shitload more money into the rest of the teams, and you have to have parity, you know. And if Dublin are getting government grants to open clubs left, right, and centre, and fair play to them, it is growing the game, but it is a massively unfair advantage that they are exploiting.
Is it growing the game though, or is it killing? You know, in some ways, like there was, I know there was a huge discussion around this, you know, last year in 2020 because of we probably had more time to discuss it than actually just watch it on the field of play. But like, even though the championship was different, it was the same. You know, it was the same as the previous 5 years or whatever. It was more of the same. So I would be worried, and I know people said, oh, you know, you can't say be worried about the future of the game. I would be a little bit worried about where the game is headed because I think, like, you look at it, was it the previous year, they couldn't travel this year, but a lot of them, there was a couple of lads from the Westmeath panel. I know John Maughan is managing Offaly, and he had said the same at some of the Mayo GATV games were chatting, you know, about different things like that. It was getting harder and harder to keep lads in the squad during the summer because they felt they had to be gone by a certain date to the US if they were going to play football out there. And they were just thinking, sure, why would we stay? Like, we've no chance of winning a Leinster.
And they're getting,
you know,
they might get paid in America to play.
They're getting a few bob, absolutely. They were getting a few bob
yeah.
in the States, and you can't blame lads. And what I'd worry about is at the minute.
That's tradition, Angelina. These counties traditionally weren't. Well, actually, no, I said that wrong. Offaly came in spurts, but traditionally, Offaly wouldn't have been in the last 20 years, 30 years a footballing team anyway.
But Meath didn't get demolished year in, year out, not even fucking getting in within a hair's breadth of them. They were always tight games. Look at the early 90s. Meath,
I know that, yeah.
They were All Ireland champions in 1996. So
and 88.
So they've got tradition, and they were horrible to play against. Now, if Mayo get Meath in the All Ireland semi-final, we're fucking laughing.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know, we're laughing. We're still kind of thinking, ooh.
Yeah, Pete, I'm with you. You're still kind of going, like, even coming up to the Tipperary game this year, and that's no disrespect to Tipperary, because by God, I was absolutely delighted to see them winning. But we were kind of going, ooh, I wonder, could Tipperary ever take us?
Yeah.
You know, it's a Mayo thing. Actually, Stephen, I think you're right. After all of that, it's an attitude thing, because definitely as supporters, there was this kind of, ooh, I wonder if we get caught now.
It goes back to the bookies. If the Mayo were such heavy favourites, you should be looking at that, and those fuckers don't get it wrong too often. So that should give you.
I think it's a question of momentum too, as well. Was it 2016 Mayo played Dublin, and there was the replay, and there was it that one, and I think it was that one, and there was a few seconds where there was a point in it, and Dublin just rugby tackled the Mayo players. They stopped them. They didn't play football. They stopped them for that. I think there was like 2 minutes left, and they were up a point, and they just stopped them. They stopped and rugby tackled them.
That's it, yeah.
And fouled them basically. And they're saying they're the greatest team of all time. But they had that momentum and they won that one. I think if Mayo just had a bit of momentum in maybe a few decisions went their way, should they scored 2 goals in one match.
That's right.
Yeah,
that was
that 16 in the first game.
That was the draw.
Yeah, the first game.
So I think undoubtedly the money plays a part. Undoubtedly, I don't question that. But I think it's a question of, if they got a bit of a momentum like they did this year, you don't know what could happen. Do you know what I mean? On the day.
100%. And look, you cannot, like I said this I think people have a bit of trepidation about Mayo being, Mayo supporters, about them being in All Irelands now. And I know as a Mayo supporter, that's kind of, I was thinking coming up to it last year, and everyone has a different opinion. We could get hammered by this Dublin team. They're better than they ever were, and it might be, Mayo are a younger team, and everyone had a different opinion on it. And there's that bit of trepidation. But like on the day, even Dublin looked comfortable throughout.
Yeah.
But like, by the same token, you have a hop of a ball or a little bit of luck, Pete. And I think, momentum, some people maybe describe it as luck at times. You have a hop of a ball that goes a different way, that favours Mayo, or it hops inside a Dublin backline, and, Cillian O'Connor's on the end of it. And it comes at a vital time in a game. You could have a different story and a different result,
Well, I mean, we were there or thereabouts until the last 20 minutes.
Even the last kind of 15. We were like, although you could see, you're right, like with about
Just
20
that's because of our panel. That's because of our panel. We don't have that extra. We don't have the bench.
Yeah, and they were bringing on like Mannion and these books, and they were having man of the match performances. Like it was crazy the stuff they were doing. Yeah, and we knew in our heart of hearts.
Howard was the winning of the game coming into midfield.
He was, absolutely, yeah, absolutely, 100%. And like, you have those books coming on though, and they're putting in as good a performance as any of the fellas who started, like, or better.
Yeah, of
course. It's very hard for us to say, but it's very hard for any county because you don't have the same, maybe panel players or depth. We've been unlucky over the years with injuries too, lads.
That's true.
Like we've had vital injuries. 2017, that was the one for me that really got away. Yeah, okay, there's been a few of them, but like 2017, with 2 or 3 minutes to go, and we have this game won. Although as a Mayo supporter, you're kind of going, oh, we probably don't. But like, you look at the bench that day, and you had about 4 of our starters who were off with different injuries.
Yeah.
Who were walking wounded. So like, and they were men who were all stars, like Andy Moore and Cullen Boyle. Who else had gone off that day? It was crazy. Like they were men who were big parts of any team, and they were sitting on the sideline because they were injured for the last 10 or 15 minutes.
Probably because they had so many crazy games to get to the final as well.
Yeah,
through the back door.
Their bodies start giving up on them, and they don't have that recovery time or the same sort of stuff again.
Well, I go back to what Chris said about he compared Dublin to the old Man United team in the 90s, but I could see that too. The same way that Dublin, it's easier to send off a Mayo player than send off one of Dublin's players. I don't know if that's me being biased or sour grapes, but I think it's easier for a referee to go, we'll just send off that Mayo player for doing something stupid. But it's a bit harder. It's a bit harder to send off the Dublin player that's sponsored, that's the pin-up, and send him off in the final. Do you know what I mean?
I don't know about that.
I don't know
about that.
Honestly, I think it's the same way with Man United, the way Alex Ferguson had their team. Referees are kind of a bit afraid to send. They'll send off a Mayo player. They might send off a Dublin player, but they'll send off a Mayo player as well.
I don't think that's fair because I don't. Roy Keane had more red cards. He had like 6 or 7 red cards in it.
Roy Keane is an exception because he was a nut job, like, but
But he was after a nut job.
I honestly think the referees wouldn't be brave enough to send off a Dublin player. It's easy to send off a Mayo player for doing something rash,
I don't know about that. I think the referees, in fairness, the referees in Gaelic football are pretty good. They're consistent at least.
Well, no.
Compared to other. Well, if you compare them to
the digger, Chris, the digger.
You compare them to other sports. You compare to other sports. They're better. If you look at Premier League football at all, you wouldn't have hair like you'd have my haircut. They look at the TV screen and they still get it wrong. So
I mean,
it's still not great.
There's been huge inconsistencies in refereeing. I think we have some of the best refs in the game. were involved in Mayo games this year. I think David Goff is outstanding. I think his
is.
interpretation of the rules, generally, you won't get everything right 100% of the time. No one will, but I think he's outstanding. But I think we've been on the end of, maybe I'm coming back to Pete's point there, the end of some horrific decisions by referees. I mean, you go down to, go back down to the Gaelic grounds in Limerick, and that day was a complete joke.
Yeah,
that replay against Kerry, that was a joke, and refereeing paid a huge. Now, two
was
Mayo
that
players.
Was that Pat McEnany?
Pat McEnany was 96.
96.
That wasn't great either. Yeah, that wasn't great either. But you look at some of the decisions that day, just there was crazy stuff going on. But I do with the likes of Dave. I don't think this year it was down to any refereeing decisions or anything like that. I certainly. I think there's. Yeah, it was a game of football that was lost. But absolutely, I don't know. Do they find it easier to send off? I don't know. I would say if you have David Goff refereeing a game, I don't think he looks the colour of the jersey. I think he's very much a man for imposing the rules. Now, the other side of that, Chris, where I'd be taking you up on it, I think some of them didn't even understand the black card.
Yeah.
I think some of them didn't understand what a foul was for a black card, and that's not good enough.
Maybe they took my stance on it, and they're traditionalists, and they're like, screw this
black card. I'd agree with that. I don't know if I'd be a fan of the black card anyway.
No, and I'm not a fan of the mark either.
So you want ground hurling. You don't want the hurlers picking the ball up.
I'm not a fan of the mark. I'm a fan of the mark in midfield, and that's it.
Yeah, I have to agree a bit there. I think a midfielder, I wouldn't rule out the mark completely, because I think it's a great thing. It encourages that bit of catch and kick. Yeah, that catch and kick, and to see a midfielder sail up into the clouds and catch a ball.
Yes.
That brilliant picture Ciara Buckley took from the Connacht final of Aidan O'Shea. I mean, Jesus, the man is tall enough without jumping that high off the ground. But I think that the mark at midfield, the offensive mark. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think they've brought stuff into Gaelic games to solve problems. The black card being one of them. Like, the black card was brought in. Just the problem I think they were trying to solve there is the referees weren't imposing yellow card offences properly and red card offences. I think if you had tidied that up, there was no need for the black card.
Yeah.
But do you think it was because obviously style of play had changed, where there was a lot more hand passing, and when, like what Pete was saying, Dublin were all over Mayo in professional fouls, just dragging players down, which would have been
cynical fouls.
Cynical fouls to win out a game.
We had a couple of years of that as well.
We were class at that. Mayo were unbelievable at that.
Oh, we had the best. When Donny Buckley was there training those lads, my goodness, our tackling, the difference, you could see it like that. It was incredible. That's why I couldn't understand Kerry this year, because Donny's involved down there, and they just didn't seem to, whether he's changed his kind of methods or whatever. I really was worried about Kerry coming that way, and I thought if they got that into their game, because they have the classy forwards and they have that side of it, that I thought
I thought he left, Angelina. I thought he left. Did he leave Kerry, or is he still with Kerry?
Oh, he's probably gone now, but was he not there for the early part of the year? No,
I'm not too sure. I think he was gone.
Oh, geez, maybe I'm a year behind myself.
I think he was
a year behind myself. Yeah, but I worried about that with Tony going there. But definitely our style of tackling was incredible. But you see, the cynical foul, I would probably, this is awful. Like, I love watching a good, clean game of football. But I do think Mayo were too nice at times as well before they started
very
doing
much.
that.
That's what I mean about attitude. Dublin have an attitude, and Dublin people in general have an attitude. No, it's a
so
good
the whole
thing.
population of Dublin now will be tuned in.
Well, I have to edit this out.
You have to edit this out.
No, don't edit it out. They have a winning attitude. It's as
But they
simple as
did.
that.
You're fucking looking back. They went 16 years without an All Ireland, and you're like, oh well, sure. They didn't have a winning attitude then, but they did.
They always had. They were winners in their heads. They were winners.
But they weren't. But
I know
they go 16 years without an All Ireland?
Are you sure they went 16 years?
They went from 1994 to
95. Yeah, wasn't it?
To 2015, was it?
No, they won one before that, didn't they?
No, they did, yeah.
Yeah, they did.
So they went sort of like 15 or 16 years.
Yeah, but
you can't say all Dublin people, sure, they're winners. See you later.
No,
Yeah.
I didn't say the winners. I said,
except the long gap where they didn't win anything.
I didn't say the winners.
I think I know
think they're winners.
I think I know what Steve is saying though. I think they've enough bravado or cheek.
Yeah.
They've enough cheek for another arse. Enough
Bit of
cheek
cheek.
for another arse.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. They do influence the referee. The referee is influenced. I hold my hand on my heart, and I definitely think the referee.
I'd agree. Yeah, I'd agree to a certain extent there, Pete, with the influence thing. I think, I do think, and I think Mayo tried to play this game very well coming up to a couple of All Irelands. Remember the big battles between Connolly and Leroy?
Yeah.
And definitely, without doubt,
that
the
was so
coverage
obvious.
that Dublin gave, poor Diarmuid Connolly, and how he was so exposed for the drawn game, and he was ripped apart, and he was this, that, and the other. We have to protect him, and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
Like that definitely had a bearing the following, because Leroy was, within what amount of time? That was that 16? It was 16 or 17. I mixed them all up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that press coverage that they took.
16.
It was orchestrated to get a black card for Lee Keegan. Like that's so sad.
Yeah.
Well, even without a card, what it was, in my opinion, make sure the referee is focusing on that dirty player Leroy Keegan, when in fact, it was two. It was two fellas, in my opinion. They were going at it hammer and tongs, and they, by God, were they some battles, and they were brilliant to watch.
That was great football to watch. And I think the losing of the final that year was the decision to put Rob Hindley in goals at the beginning after Clark having great games.
That was just completely on kick-out strategy idea.
It was, and this annoys me a bit, and I'm so glad that you're saying that, Chris, because there's an awful lot of these conspiracy theories around about that day, and it's unfair. It's unfair to players. Players got flack over that had nothing to do with a decision, that was made by management based on kick-out strategy. Because I believe if you look back at the drawn game, there were kickouts that that weren't ideal in the last 10 or 15 minutes or whatever, that led to the game being drawn, or helped contribute to the game being drawn the first day. So it was a strategy, and it was a very risky one. If it had worked out, it would have been the greatest masterstroke. But I agree. I think it was a very, very rash. Yeah. After
15 minutes, you could tell it wasn't working.
Oh, listen, Stephen, you're preaching to the converted here. I'm not at all. I don't disagree at all. I think David Clark was an all-star keeper that year. Why would you take a man who was who was so consistent, and he still is. I know he's retired from Ulster County, but David Clark was one of the best shot stoppers in the game.
There was a lot of talk about his kick out in the Dublin match.
Has been.
It was brilliant. In the final,
he nailed
it.
He nailed it in the 2020 final. He nailed it.
I personally think he's the biggest loss of all the retirements.
Yeah. I said this to my sister again. We do have great old chats about football. A shout out to Bernie, and she's my little Sunday game analyst. I reckon they should get her on. She's not afraid to say she's a tiny, small little thingy. Well, she's tall, but she's really petite. But if you heard her in that, she's like a fishwife. Whoa! She's savage. She absolutely loves her football. She lives and breathes it. And she'll kill me now for this. So make sure you leave that in. But, we were talking about this, and I think I agree with that point. I think he'll be a massive loss, because David Clark, I go back to Carrick and Shannon, that first match I did back after the lockdown. And actually, a couple of the club games that I covered, the Ballina ones from AOGA TV, where again, there were no crowds. My God, talk about a man that mustn't have a voice when he comes off a pitch. His communication with his defence is exceptional. Absolutely exceptional. He's shouting all the time. He's communicating. He's organising them. And even when you'd hear him shouting, I was watching him at the club game in particular, because I could watch the match because I was doing the presenting work in between. So I had more time to actually watch what was going on. Like, he was seeing the formation in front of him. His vision was incredible. Like, I was blown away by that. And I was saying that actually in the conversation we were having. I think he's going to be a massive loss, because I think he's very hard to replace. I think people probably don't realise how hard he is to replace.
That's why we had Pora on the podcast. You've seen the same thing.
I saw it. I actually watched that one, and I know he's a club man of David's and everything, but he testified to it, because that day, the club game especially, as I said, he was doing the exact same in the Mayo game, but I was reporting, so I was kind of more focused on the play at the time. But to watch him in action and what his kind of his communication was with his defence, it was incredible. I think he's a huge loss. Yeah, he nailed his kickouts. I'm so glad someone else has said that. He nailed the 2020 final. Absolutely.
I've always been a big fan of
Because
that.
He's a great player.
But
Yeah.
consistently over there, like no one's down that David Clarke is probably the best shot stopper I've ever seen in Gaelic football.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
You would back him in any one-on-one situation. He is so gifted. But consistently, the one thing that Dublin has had over Mayo is that every attack starts with Stephen Cluxton with the ball in his hand, and they've built a machine around.
They've done that against everyone, Chris.
Everyone.
They've done that against everyone.
And it's almost
yeah.
The game has progressed along those lines, and I think that we might, if Henley had persisted, if he could get to a half the level that David Clarke was at, stopping the ball, he has the technique. He has the technique to be able to spray the ball as well, long and short.
Yeah, of course. He could be better than Cluxton, like. Do you know what I
mean? Because I think Cluxton was very easy to balk. You know, not easy. I shouldn't say easy, but I think when Mayo, like we saw it a couple of times, I think it was a league game in Croke Park where he actually got sent off for kicking Kevin McLaughlin because they put Kevin McLaughlin in front of him as a sweeper, and Kevin annoyed the head of him. He was like a buzzing bee, you know, Kevin McLaughlin. and he like so unlike Cluxton. I mean, my God, talk about a man that's whoosh. But
unless he the time he punched Jason McAteer.
Well,
yes.
You know,
that's your next challenge, lad.
Get them on the podcast, the two of them.
You need to get Stephen Cluxton on the podcast, but you need to get him drunk, so that you know, like Graham Norton does with guests, so that he talks. Yes. Because otherwise, you're just going to get Stonewall Stephen Cluxton. But you know, why don't you get him drunk in the green room beforehand with the champagne? I'd watch that.
Yeah, we must get you. Where did your love of GAA come from, or sport in general? But I'm presuming GAA, the way you always talk about GAA, I'm presuming GAA is your first love of sport.
And you know, lads, this is maybe a bit weird in the time because boxing has changed up, but boxing would have been my second one, which is kind of a weird one. Yeah. But it's my dad. It was my dad. So there's two of us in the family, myself and my sister, again, Bernie, and she's younger. I'm the eldest. But my father's a big GAA fan and a big boxing fan. But my mum is a retired nurse. And from very early on, the only way he was going to get to go back out to matches, especially when my mother was doing night duty or working long days or whatever, was to bring me with him because there was no one to mind the child. So he brought me with him, and I know he would have told me that his big thing was that I absolutely plagued him with questions the first few matches that I went to with him, like why was he doing this, Dad? Why was that was it. From there on in, I went with him to games. We were inseparable, really, that way. Like he travelled the length and breadth of the country, and we went with him. And my sister, then as she got older, would have come with us as well. But I spent a lot of time with him. But he was a massive boxing fan, heavyweight division, Muhammad Ali, George Fraser. I still have some of the videotapes because they were on videotapes. Like we bought them as Father's Day gifts and Christmas gifts, and you know of the great fights or the compilations.
Yes, I have
champions forever.
My own father then.
Oh, brilliant! So they're thing, and I actually must put them on DVD. I saw some stuff, and especially around the marvelous dying in the last few days. Mervyn Hagler was a man I heard so much about as well. So, or Sugar Ray, like Dad loved boxing, so I watched a lot of that with him. But I think I was just a dad, you know. I'd sit and watch them with him, and I was listening and soaking it all in, and I loved it. So yeah, it was just from Stephen. It was just from going to them. It was from like it was a sporting house in that he loved it. He listened and watched everything that was kind of sport. So it's kind of GA was his first love, and it would be mine, you know. But you know what I developed a huge respect for and love for over the last month or so is camogie. I covered an awful lot of the camogie championship for RTE in November. By God, that skill, lads, and that's not trying to be disrespectful. But you know, there was sideline cuts and sideline scores taken in games that I was covering that if it was in hurling, there would have been a half an hour coverage about it later on that evening. They're just incredible athletes, you know. So but I love sport, and it kept me sane during the last lockdown. I'm sure you're the same, like, you know, that even that we could watch the stuff and that. Yeah, did. Yeah, definitely.
Well, we were talking about this before. I was like, I didn't like. I love sports, all sports anyway, but when the first lockdown hit and everything was taken away and everything was shut down, I didn't realize how much time I distract myself by just watching sports or
even reading the stuff about it, reports on it, or
it's a healthy distraction.
Yeah,
yeah.
it is. And it saved me.
Even chatting among ourselves, like your friends about it.
Yeah.
Or like the high stew lads on a Sunday. Sunday evening used to be mine, because I was off on a Monday and Tuesday when I was in Midwest, and the great gang in Bala there, and Paul McHugh had been the Balladreen manager up until last year, and you know, Paul and Desi and you know, Lee McBride, whose son David is part of the Mayo squad now. He's a one to watch, the up and coming full back, David McBride. He missed a lot of he was on the senior squad but missed it through injury the last few games last year. But like, the chat there on a Sunday evening would just be the best to crack. I miss that so much. It's the social side of that I miss.
Getting back to your father, he's passed away.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember when you were telling us when we met up and we talked about the Mayo Roscommon Hospice, and when we were going doing the run for Mayo Roscommon Hospice, you talked very fondly about him, and also that how Mayo Roscommon Hospice helped out or helped you and your family the time that your father was sick. Would you like to tell us about that? And did it influence you in taking up the position in Mayo Roscommon Hospice?
Oh, 100%, Stephen. I know, and Pete, that, you know, we spoke about this at the time, and I used to tell this story simply because it probably made, you know, for me, it made the whole thing more relatable. Or if I was talking to people like yourselves who are coming to us about a fundraiser, I always wanted people to know that there was a personal kind of connection in it for me as well, because you know, it is all about the human story at the end of the day, and relaying that human story. And for you, like, you have your own story about why you did it for Beaumont, the Beaumont Foundation the year before, and those stories make things very personable, and you know, so yeah, he and it wasn't cancer. This is the big thing about Mayo Roscommon Hospice Foundation that maybe some people don't realise, that they think it's only cancer patients that palliative care looks after. But he had a condition called peripheral vascular disease, which was no circulation in the legs. It's a very painful condition. So the palliative care service looks after, you know, people think it's maybe just the medical. It is obviously the medical side of it very, very well. But I mean, I think the way I described it to you, or I certainly have described it before, is they looked after the entire family, all of us. So from the minute, and you know, he had a lot of he had a surgery the July before he passed away, and then he was out and he was in again with infections and stuff like that. But he came out for Christmas in 2016, and the palliative care service were in very often at that point to make sure he was very comfortable, which he was. But I remember, you know, being in there one day in the house with Mum, and Dad was there, and obviously my sister lives in Galway, but she was up and down so frequently as well. But I remember the nurse kind of saying, we were saying, well, I wonder, is it time for, you know, does he need to go to hospital, or how is he feeling? And I remember Caroline, the nurse, who I get emotional when I talk about Caroline, actually, more so than Dad. Sorry, Dad. If you're telling him which direction to look, up or down, he'd like that. But, no, I mean, because Caroline was she was just an amazing part of that whole experience for us. But I remember her saying, yeah, but do you need it? As in, myself and Mum, like, how are you doing? Are you okay with all of this? Because it was, you know, it was medication, and I'm so glad I did it, but it wasn't easy at the time. I'm so glad I was involved to do it. But it wasn't easy, you know, on anyone. But what blew me away about that was she was as concerned about us. She knew Dad was comfortable because he was getting everything he needed medically. But she was as concerned about us and how we were coping and faring. And that's palliative care for me. It's the entire family, the entire fulcrum. And then after, of course, like, there's bereavement counselling if people need it or want it, and it's all free of charge. So that's what the fundraising is about. So did it lead me to the job? 100%. I remember when I saw the job advertised on Facebook, and we're actually after coming back from Rome. Do you remember when we could travel, lads, and get in a plane? That was great crack. And we were sitting in a filling station in Dublin because we brought Brendan's parents away. It was their Christmas present, and we were sitting, and of course nothing would do the two bucks, like my father-in-law and Brendan, than to have a sausage sandwich as soon as they landed in Dublin, you know, because who'd like Italian cuisine, like, you know. We were sitting in a filling station and I was scrolling through Facebook, and you know, I saw the job, and I handed the phone to Brendan and I said, what do you think? And he was like, you have to go for that. You've been on about doing a big fundraiser for them since, like, Frank, since my dad passed away. And he said, is this not the ideal way to do it? So I wouldn't change a minute of it. You know, I was 20 months there, and it was a privilege and an honor to be involved with the work that they do and continue to do, because obviously there's a Roscommon Hospice being built now, but like, I was lucky enough to be there for the opening of the Mayo Hospice, which ye saw. Like, I mean, it's an amazing facility.
It's incredible.
And then the Roscommon Hospice will be completed later this year. And again, it's all from fundraised income, and it's an amazing organisation. But so it led me to that work, and I'm so glad I was involved in it for a while. And as I said to the girls and the team when I was leaving, it's not the end of it for me, because I said, I probably shouldn't have said it, because they will hold me to it. I said, if you need a bucket holding somewhere, girls, or you need something doing, like, you know my number, and it'll be a charity that's, again, for that personal reason, so close to my heart. It's not that what the other charities are doing isn't great work, it is, but when, as you know, Stephen, when you're impacted positively at a very hard time in your life by something like that, then you'll always have an affinity to it, and I always will, you know.
Well, me and Pete decided, we actually walked up the Reap. We were actually helping out a crowd of lads that were fundraising for. Can you remember what they were fundraising for, Pete? Was it Irish Cancer?
Yes.
Cancer. I think it was. I'm not too sure. I can't remember. What was it, Chris?
Anyway,
do you remember?
Irish Cancer Society, I think.
Yeah, it was Irish Cancer Society. So we walked up and we give them a hand, we give them a plug on our pages or our platforms, whatever. And on the way down, we had intended to run the whole Wild Atlantic Way last year.
Yeah.
That was our big plan, but obviously COVID put a stop to that. And Pete, I remember turning to me and said, it's a pity we couldn't do something this year. And we sort of knew that the restrictions were going to be lifted a little bit. And we were looking down and we were looking over Clew Bay. And then I just said to Pete, I said, well, maybe we could run the Mayo coast over, we'll see whatever distance it is. So we actually stopped on the way down and checked the distance of it, and it was something like 500 and something. And then I thought to myself, that's brilliant, that's a challenge.
But, like, because you know the way it'd be, like, that's, yeah.
But as it happened on the road, it's only 300.
When I wake up.
But
I was such a letdown. It was such a letdown.
It wasn't a letdown at all. It wasn't a letdown at all.
So then we decided. Then we were like, well, who are we going to do it for? And Pete said straight away, Mayo Roscommon Hospice, and I said, yeah. And I had actually known, like, it was a perfect, because I had met you the time I was doing the Mayo to Dublin route with Pete for Beaumont.
Yeah.
And I remember I went into Midwest Studios, and I remember you were just a brilliant interviewer. You kept everything going. You knew what to ask, when to ask for, and I knew I had that contact already built up. So I messaged you, and then Chris, of course, got involved as well, and he took it on board as he did.
Stuck his nose in. I'm joking.
Nothing new.
And me and Chris then met you in the gateway in Swinford, and then I just knew that it was
I'd say
right.
we were talking for about 3 hours that fucking day.
I'll give you a funny story. That day,
half an hour meeting.
I think they thought I was kidnapped in the hospice office, because I had said to the girls that I worked with, I have a meeting in Swinford. It was morning time, I think, that we met down there. And I said, but I'll be back in the office by probably about 11 o'clock or 11:30. So, and I think it was nearly lunchtime when we came out. And I rang the office and said, is everything all right? I'm just out of that meeting. They were like, oh my God, we were kind of worried. I was like, well, you should have been. No, but it was great though. And like, I knew, like, you talk about, Stephen, you've been very flattering there, and thank you. But I knew the minute that we kind of met down there how invested you were in it. And that's a huge thing too, because none of those things work unless you have people, behind you that are invested in stuff. And sure, he had to do the challenge. It's all right me being great to have a chat with and a natter with, but like you had to go and do it.
But you organised accommodation and recovery, and it was brilliant. We wouldn't be able to do it without.
It got done so quickly as well. It held my feet to the fire. It was like 2 days later, Angelina had so much stomach. I was like, God damn it!
I'm a bit of a one. Yeah, I'm a bit impatient with myself at times. You know, I want to get things done immediately when I was, and I came away from that really excited about it because you know it was opening us up to an audience that we wouldn't have had. We had this discussion. I mean, like your pages, like what we were exposed to over, you know, the not just the 5 days, but the lead up to it as well was massive for us. And people who never knew anything about what we did were exposed to that because of ye. And in a very, you know, in your unique way of doing it, like even the video on the hospice was brilliant. Like, sure, I loved it. I was sitting there going, "This is great, crap. This is like what's going." You know, it's brilliant.
Yeah, that was good fun that day. Like I suppose the other side of it is that when the lads were actually running the route, it was constantly fulfilling, just for everyone involved. Like I think on the road down from Dublin to Mayo, because there's that bit of impatience where cars are just flying past all day, and it just felt really, really long. Whereas the day was constantly broken up on I don't know, for you guys, you might have found this differently, but people were stopping all the time just to throw money in a bucket. There's like the kids outside of school waving and they have placards. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's true.
It's different, like.
There was great camaraderie, and it's beautiful scenery as well. Like we were running down from Dublin. No offense to the areas, but just wasn't as beautiful. Do you know what I mean?
But you're not on a coastline, and you don't have that rawness, like, do you?
Come on, Longford, shape up.
But to see the thing about it, what made it easier for us as well is like we didn't have that organisation on the Dublin to Mayo or the Dublin to Mayo route from Beaumont, and obviously. We learned so much from that, but you made it much easier for us to not have to worry about accommodation, to not have to worry about physios, you know, and we got plenty of coverage on it as well. And it made things just way easier. Plus as well, for the places that we stopped in as well, it just showed you that we give back as much as we tried. We pushed the likes of the Helm in Westport. Achill Island in general was just amazing.
It was amazing,
brilliant, brilliant.
The Broadhaven in Belmullet, and then the Anglers Rest in
Glenamoy.
Yeah.
So, one of my favourite spots. One of my favourite. Well, Helm as well.
Helm in Westport as well. Brilliant.
Yeah, brilliant.
It was.
But you know, it was thanks to, but like it was again. You see, it comes back, lads. To it's all right me making a call. But if you don't have people on the other end of the phone that are receptive to the work that, you know, what the fundraiser is for. So like Vinny and the Helm, Mary B in Achill. I know, Chris, you had organised the Broadhaven, so I definitely can't take credit for that. And Michael D. McAndrew, my former colleague in Midwest, it's his parents who run the Anglers Rest. So like, so there was no hesitation from any one of them. There was, I mean, literally the minute. And Martin McIntyre, we have to mention Martin McIntyre, the physio. Like, you know, you rang Martin McIntyre or texted him and said, you might provide a physio for one of the days. No, I'll do the 5. That was it. And then you got one of the greatest legends.
Connor Dunn.
Connor.
He tried to buy my car on the evening that she came back into Liscrone and sell me another one.
Yeah.
he was good and will remain a friend for life, really. Yeah. But the thing about that, every place we went to, or anyone that we said that who we were doing it for and who we were doing it with around the country, and we mentioned your name, they had nothing but the height of respect and just like around especially around Mayo, you were seen as a goddess. You really
That's
are.
Because, Stephen, I wrote the checks out when I was calling them. Like, you know, they were all paid off in advance.
That's what you do when you're a media mogul, is it?
Yeah, 100%. They were all paid off well in advance.
That's
We left the last time we were talking to you in person. We said that we were going to have a night out of pints whenever they come up, and I really will hold you to that. I cannot
we
wait.
still have to do a check presentation thing there.
Yeah, we do.
I'll go back for one night only. I wouldn't. If you have a night out without me, I'll kill you. That's what I'll do.
We wouldn't do that. We wouldn't do that.
Step, I see Cathal Kelly is doing massive deals in the Gateway. He's
Yes.
so I'll be booking in for like 4 days for the session.
4.
He's doing a good deal on 4 or 5 nights.
Where are you going to stay for the other 3?
I'm sure Woody, you'll put me up when I run out.
Right. Angelina, we probably won't keep you much longer. What is your plans for the future? What are you getting into?
Well, look, that's a great question. I thought this might be a job interview. It kind of felt like the 4th host of the Dead Hedgehogs podcast.
Yeah, we're thinking of replacing Cowboy.
You can't do that. But yeah, I really thought it was. So obviously I'm not getting the job, lads. So I left with no concrete plan, which was never in the plan. But sure, it's in life all about not having concrete plans at times and maybe feeling, what's the name of the book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, which I wouldn't have done. And look, I left Midwest because I felt I needed a new challenge as well personally, to get all serious about it. And that if I didn't do it then, I was never going to do it. So, and I did that. And, I feel like I conquered that challenge and conquered that fear and did it. And I think it helped me enormously because I went into something that I had never dreamed I'd ever be doing or be able to do. And I was able to do it. And I'm very grateful for the opportunities I was given by the hospice to do it. So now, unfortunately, the sport being gone is a bit of a pain because I was doing the freelance stuff, as I said, for Mayo GAA TV, which hopefully the club will happen in some way, shape or form later on this year. And if intra-county happens across all codes, I'd be hoping I'd have a bit of freelance at Radio 1 again because I really enjoyed doing that stuff. And probably for me, media at this moment in time is struggling. You look at independent radio stations across the country. I say that on papers, obviously, but I wouldn't have the same, internal knowledge of a paper, the workings. But like advertising has fallen off a cliff. So there's going to be hard times for them. And I know the government have grant aided them as well as everything else they've grant aided along the way. So, local radio or, even some of the independent radio stations, it's not just local. I mean, you're talking about your independent nationals as well, will find it hard. So I'm not sure that it's going to be a route for me for full time immediately or anything like that, or but there is something in the works, and I don't want to jinx it, but in the communication side of things, and if it happens, it would be very exciting because it'd be something that I haven't done before, and it would open up a corridor for me that would be completely different and another new challenge that I would be extremely excited about. What I can say is, and I suppose sure you can cut this out if it's all falling apart by the time it goes out, is that it's with a politician. It's a communications job with a politician who I'd be very excited to work with. If it comes off. And look, to get to maybe learn a little bit more about that. Life is about learning, and sure, like if we stay in the same place all the time, we're not going to learn anything from it. So I'm just excited to see what the next chapter brings. And I would have done the next run with you, but unfortunately I'm injured. So I can't learn about that.
We can wait.
Sorry, I was just going to announce that I was going to do it with you, but unfortunately that's that. So
this communications role would be a good opportunity for you to cut your teeth before you take on campaign manager for Cowboy running for TD.
Oh my God, I'm there.
That is definitely the long-term plan.
Yeah, because he can't fulfill promises either. So he's ideal for it.
You're elected. Is it really, now turn this around, is it really the plan?
Oh, I would, Jan, in maybe 10 years' time, yeah.
Why would you leave it 10 years?
Well, I was thinking that.
Then, Stephen, you're about
5
years.
5
I
years.
want the beard to grow a little bit more.
5 years.
5 years. I did say 10
fair
years.
enough, yeah.
I did say 10 years about a year ago or 2 years ago, but now I might even do it in 5 years. Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah.
You just have to. You
Oh,
just
do
have to
it.
find something to believe in now, mate.
I do have a long-term goal.
Oh my God, when you're Taoiseach, will you still talk to us? Can we do another one of these podcasts?
Don't worry. I'm not going to be Taoiseach without any.
Well,
I knew it was worth my while coming on the podcast.
now you're getting good at the communications things. You're getting all these future plans out of the way.
Yeah.
100%. We can streamline that for you, Stephen. We can get the messaging out there. Yeah, we get the messaging right. What's your platform?
My platform. Facebook and Instagram.
I knew. I just have to, yeah.
Yeah, you got a lot of work to do.
I know, yeah. No, I walk myself into that one. In fairness, like
I can't. You know what, I can't wait for the scandals to come out because they're going to be fucking golden.
No,
Well, come here. Do I have to manage them?
Yeah, obviously. I'm definitely not doing it anyway.
Chris, myself and yourself work very well together. You can take care of the
I
scandals,
don't know.
right?
I'll probably be the one in the middle of it.
Is to put them out straight away. Just let them all out straight away.
In one go.
And then, in one go. Let them all out, everything.
So what you should do is like an exclusive interview with, one of the Sunday papers. Just before you declare your candidacy.
Yourself.
Yeah. That's a whole other thing. You can get arrested for that.
Or on the Late Show.
And expose yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Guys, we better cut this. Because we get in trouble. We get in trouble.
Angelina, thank you for coming on the podcast. Guys, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, and if you haven't become a Patreon member, please become a Patreon member. Guys, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, guys. Angelina, thank you so much.
Brilliant.
Thanks so much.